Grasping a society's standing is an arduous task due to their strengths and vulnerabilities being determined by a complex interplay of various factors. From global aspects to micro variables, any and all human interactions influence this intricate tapestry. As you can imagine, this becomes even more significant when you factor in superhuman abilities into the mix. In the wacky Dongwon, known as Scissor 7, there's currently 3 main factions in the world, with each one of them having completely different ideologies and societal structures from one another. Unsurprisingly, these differences caused war to envelop the entire world for the past 25 years. On one side, you have Xuanwu, a country of supernatural martial artists who pride themselves in their physical capabilities. They believe no weapon will be able to pose a threat to someone who truly reaches the highest level of Kung Fu and Ki control. Any defeat they experience is simply a result of them not training enough. On the other side, you have Stan, by far the most technologically advanced country, whose people pride themselves in their mental capabilities. Using various inventions such as sophisticated AI, robots, and energy weapons, they believe no ordinary human will be able to surpass their combined intellect. Any defeat they experience is simply a result of them needing to do more research. Lastly, stuck in the middle of these two polar ideologies is Chicken Island, a stand-in for the average Joe. People who don't have extraordinary abilities, who just go about trying to do the best that they can given their circumstances. Working mundane jobs and simply hanging out with one another, often being at the mercy of the elite, having to cower away from their respective societies. It's a story as old as time, where those who have power will take advantage of anyone beneath them to get ahead in life. But does that realistically work out? More than anything else, Scissor 7 is a story about how and why pursuing power at all costs is detrimental. That assessment may seem surprising to many people, since the series is largely renowned for its bombastic fights. Many fans even voiced complaints about Season 4 still having too many filler episodes focusing on the inhabitants of Chicken Island. However, that would only leave the show being an empty husk of itself, especially since almost every single character represents how important that filler is. So important that it alludes to the fall of both Xuanwu and Stan by the end of the story, with the most obvious character symbolizing this being the main character himself, 7. After all, his entire story is about being a former Xuanwu elite assassin who's chosen the path of being a hairdresser instead. Having said that, I would rather look at the story a little closer and dedicate the time to the other prominent characters that also embody this idea, even if it may not be as obvious from the get-go. And I can't think of anyone better to start a discussion than the calm, bowl-cut rocking man himself. Initially being the main antagonist of Season 1, the Prince of Stan has a deeply rooted superiority complex like most Standians, and often takes whatever he wants from those beneath him. But this doesn't mean he is an inherently bad person. In fact, the story seems to imply how he's nothing more than a simple byproduct of a society's messed up ideology, having only ever been taught about the importance of getting results. With this ideology being so deeply rooted within its people that they will gladly give up their life for scientific experiments. If the citizens themselves do not value their own well-being, then it's obvious that they would not care about the opinions of people vastly below their level. Not being able to comprehend why others would hate them for simply following the natural order of their society. Yet what happens when you're forced to confront a completely different reality that strongly opposes the status quo? Many would simply dismiss it as being frivolous, but this Prince of Stan is different. Being a true representation of a scientist, he doesn't fall into the typical confirmation bias. He views contradictory information and honestly ponders it. having the list of things for him to reflect upon keep growing with each development in the series. The biggest one undoubtedly being Cola's existence. Starting with the fact that she caused a top Standian scientist to break away from their beliefs and willingly become a wanted criminal, running away with her so that the highly valuable experiment could live a regular, worthless life. A decision that's reinforced by Cola's own choice to rather die on Chicken Island than to stay cooped up in Stan for a potential cure. As I mentioned previously, Standians aren't foreign to the concept of laying down one's own life, but it has always been for a much grander purpose such as their research. But the scientists, Cola, and all the inhabitants of Chicken Island don't seem to care about that whatsoever. In fact, they constantly oppose the idea directly throughout the series, choosing to rather spend their time doing pointless activities, valuing it so much that they will all risk their lives fighting against those who would take it away, having a resolve so strong that they will all keep getting up over and over again regardless of how hopeless it is. They simply can't bring themselves to just sit back and watch. But why? Above everything else, how could they be so content with that life? Cola herself is probably going to die due to factors vastly outside of her control. Yet she still holds on to her dreams and desires, looking death straight in the face countless times. Because of that absurdity, and despite his upbringing, the prince could not help but get extremely attached to the fascinating Cola, displaying a far greater degree of humanity whenever she is involved, listening to whatever request she has, even if they go against his own goals and desires. Becoming so enraged by her getting hurt that it was the first time we've ever seen him completely lose his composure and actively want to kill someone. More importantly, it seems to actually be the first time he has ever felt that way, because immediately after, he was able to understand why the inhabitants of superpowered country hated Standians so much. An idea that was completely outside of his understanding just a few minutes prior, showcasing how little one of the smartest beings alive actually understood about life and the greater importance of human connections, demonstrating the drastic change that he has already gone through from the few interactions he's had with others, going from being the one threatening to destroy Chicken Island to doing everything in his power to prevent its destruction. No matter how much society tries to dictate what people should or shouldn't feel, there will always be those that grow outside of what's allowed. Their feelings will continue to deepen until they change for the better or worse. We've already seen the disastrous effects that inevitably transpire when societies reject and spit on this growth. But I suppose that's a discussion for a separate video. Either way, one thing is for certain, the high-ranking Prince of Stan will forever change his society, in one way or another.